Hello, welcome to this video on completing the square. Quite a few of you have been asking about how to complete the square and then how to solve using completing the square, so I'll show you how to do both. So I've got this expression to start off with, x squared plus 10x plus 3, and I'm going to just complete the square on it to begin with. The completed square form will always look like x plus or minus something squared and then plus or minus something else. It will always look in that form, and that's what we want to end up aiming towards. My first step is to know, well, it's going to look like this, so it's got to be x and then something squared. We need to decide what this something here is in this bracket to begin with. That comes from our coefficient of x, the number that's before the x, and we're going to divide it by 2. So this is a positive 10, so I'm halving it to put positive 5. We could then expand the brackets out and then see what's left over and compare it to this one. What I'm going to do to show you a shortcut is to take away whatever this number on the end is squared, so take away 5 squared and then put the number that we've got on the end, the plus 3, back on the end there. Now all that's left to do is to simplify what this part is on the end. We've got what our bracket is, x plus 5 squared, and then we've got minus 5 squared, so 5 squared is 25, so this is minus 25. Minus 25 add 3 would get us to minus 22. And you can see there that it looks like this. We've got x plus 5 squared and then we've got minus 22. And it looks exactly like that. So that is completing the square. Sometimes you're asked to solve using completing the square, and that's where it usually will have equals 0 on the end. In that case, you would need to go through and do exactly what we've just done, ignoring that it's equals 0, and complete the square. And then when you get to the end, we know that this has to be equal to 0, because that's what we started off with. We need to then go through and solve this equation to find out what x is. Okay, the steps that we use to solve this are the same every single time. The first step, we're going to remove this number that we've got on the end, and in this case it's minus 22, so we'll do the opposite by adding 22 to both sides of my equation. That would then leave me with x plus 5 squared, and now that equals 22. Okay, so we've eliminated the minus 22. The second step, and again it's always the same, is to get rid of this squared. The opposite of squaring something is square rooting, so we're going to square root both sides. This side removes the squared, so we end up with x plus 5, and then we've got the square root of 22. Whenever we square root something, we need to remember that there's a positive and a negative square root. The final step is to remove the plus 5 in this case, so we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. So that's going to end up with leaving us with x on the left hand side, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 22 and then subtract 5. At the moment my answer is in square root form, so I've got two answers. I've got x equals the positive square root of 22, then take away 5, or we've got x equals the negative square root of 22 and then minus 5. Okay, they're my two answers at the moment, and they're currently in square root form. Sometimes it'll ask to give your answers to a specific amount of decimal places. That's when you need to reach for your calculator, and we need to put this in our calculator and round. So say it's set to 2 decimal places. I'm going to put in the square root of 22 and then take away 5. So it still comes up with that, but press the SD button. We're going to end up with my first value being minus 0.31 if it was to 2 decimal places. And then my second one, all I can do is come and change it into a minus square root of 22, and then that will tell me the value of this x, which in this case gives me minus 9.69 if we were talking to 2 decimal places. Okay, so solving using completing the square. Complete the square to begin with, like we normally do. Then we go through and solve using exactly the same steps. The thing we end up with it will be in square root form, but then we can have two values and we could work out the actual values of them by putting it into a calculator. Hope that's helped. Thank you very much.